This is the third video that is connected to the September 18th class, where we are focusing on the I, the information in geographic information systems. In the last video, we learned sort of what fields look like, how they're structured, and through adding new fields, we saw how we could change their underlying type. And we really picked three, right? An integer, a double, and a text. Right now, they don't look all that different, right? It's not until we start populating them and introducing something called calculate field that you'll start to see how they are different from one another and why they store different pieces of data. Before we even do that, though, something I should have probably done in the last video, but I'll take care of it here, is I want you to explore that magical tool right-click that we loved so much last week and that I will continue to beat into everyone's head every week until it sticks. Look at the universe that has opened to me with the magic of right-click here. We will spend the rest of sort of these videos with this data set really on these four. Calculating fields, right? Entering new information into a field. Calculating geometry, which is related to that, right? But how you access an underlying calculation that allows you to see how big something is, how wide, its coordinates, so on and so forth. And ending with these two, how you take that information that is now stored in your geography and perform some statistical operation to it. Summarize, find the mean, find the median, and do those same properties by summaries. So if in this example we want to be able to find out how many people work, for example, in the River Wards district, or what the average or total sort of park acres is, or what the average population density is, we can do that through these tools right here. All the other things to be aware of is, ArcGIS, we're going to be mostly learning this as an analytical tool, but it's also a visual tool, right? I mean, you can visually right-click and sort, your data and your information in a descending or an ascending or a custom fashion if you want to visualize it some way. And there's other ways to sort of play with the data too that we didn't really demonstrate. If I were to come back to that fields operation I had before, and I pick total jobs, and let's say I click highlight. Theoretically, why are you being difficult? Select highlight. Ugh, not letting me do this. There we go. Highlight, and then instead of numeric, I'm going to click here and say, okay, no decimal places, show 1,000 separator. I'm not taking a number and putting an actual comma in it. This is strictly visual, right? It's just a way like we would do in Excel to help our eyes. And if I save it, all I'm doing there, again, I don't mess with the underlying data, right, because I can't modify it because it's actually an integer. I've just sort of highlighted the field so I can see it better. And like I said, I've introduced those commas just to make it read better. So that's totally on you. If you don't care about that, you don't have to. But just to let you know, it's slightly more complicated than how you do it in Excel, but you do have that ability to visualize fields in a certain way. But really where I want to focus on now is calculating fields in each of these. And let's just start it off nice and easy. I want you to grab integer, and I want you to go to calculate field. Now, a new window is going to pop up here. I want to talk you through what each thing is. For this video, we're going to be relatively simple with what we calculate. And then the next video, I'm going to broaden our calculations a bit. I'm going to sort of show some other things that you can do with Field Calculator because it's an incredibly deep tool. And we will continue to refer to it throughout the year and get more complex when we need to. But those students who only want to sort of braze the surface with it and understand its basic competencies will really be covered in this video and the next. Here's what this structure means. Hey, where am I doing the calculations? Well, you're doing it in this, data piece that's attached to my shapefile called neighborhoods with information. What's the name of the field I'm going to calculate? Well, I right-clicked integer, so it chose that. But if you pick the wrong field, right, you could select any other you want to calculate. Expression type is best thought of as what language am I using? We will almost exclusively use Python as our language in this class. I'll send some resources. I'll share them during the 18th class, or possibly before, for those who are interested in Arcade. It's just a different language. You know, it's sort of Spanish and Mandarin. Right? You're two different ways of organizing your information here so that the result pops up. Now, these are some of the most key elements to have while you're learning how to use this. If this is your first time with Field Calculator, this probably seems very overwhelming, but let me walk you through it. Anytime, and this will come up frequently throughout the semester, that ArcGIS gives you the option to select something or choose it, it's prompting you to do so. It's almost telling you, hey, don't type this in yourself because I require something very specific. And that's what this is, the actual fields. So in a minute, I'll show you how we could do this. If I wanted my field integer to take on, for example, burglaries, I could say, or double-click burglaries. And there it goes. It would pop up right here. And what I would do is integer would equal burglaries. Now, notice there is an exclamation point in front and behind burglaries. All that means is that's just Python speak. That's Python language for take whatever value exists in burglaries and set it to integer. And so therefore, this row should equal 229. This row should equal 218, so on and so forth. In fact, let me just run it to make that demonstrative point, and then we'll come right back in and recalculate. It'll do its thing. It'll take a quick second. And now integer has changed to take on that value. Well, that's a fascinating concept. And we'll learn in the next video how much deeper you can go with that. If you can take one value, why not multiple? Maybe in a future video, we'll find the area of the neighborhood, and then we'll divide the area of parkland by that and understand the percentage of each neighborhood that is parkland. Or maybe we'll understand how many more people work than live in a certain geography, right? There's all sorts of different ways you can begin to use multiple fields through Calculator now. Over here, we'll get to more in the second video and later on in the semester. These are helpers that I do not in any way expect you to learn in detail. And the way they look right now probably will not make sense to any of you that don't have Python background. But these are best thought of as verbs, right? Reserved words, reserved verbs that will do something to certain values, right? A little bit later, maybe we'll use this capitalized one, and that would take the district name and capitalize it. We can use other ones to replace words with other words. Maybe we'd want to replace every time we saw the word river with the word cheese. I have no idea why we'd do that, but we'd be able to. Maybe we'd want to perform more complex mathematic operations, or we'd want to be able to do if and then and else. All stuff I'll show you either in the next video or in videos later on in class. I just want you to know what this is and why it's here. Ignore code block for now. The purpose of code block is simply if you need to create complex pieces of code that account for things such as if, right? If a value is one thing, do something else. I'll walk through that in a little bit, but that's a little more advanced than where we are now. This really is the field that matters, right? It's kind of hidden here. This is a weird way ArcGIS loves to do things. But this actually means like, hey, I'm integer. Whatever number or value you want me to take on, put it here. And so instead of burglaries, let's just maybe do the value of 2. And we'll run it. And now they're all going to take on the value of 2. Ta-da! Let's see how that would look in double. The only switch I'll make is instead of integer, I'll say, hey, I'm going to calculate the field double. Keep everything else the same. Run it. They look the same, but let's try something different. Here's something I can do in double that I couldn't do in the other. 2.24. If I try to run that same number in integer, it will crash because integer can't handle decimals. It'll push it down to 2, right? It'll round down to the nearest whole number. And finally, text. Text is where you store characters. And here's what I mean by that. If I just kept this as is in text and ran it, it's going to look like it added it. But what you don't see, and what's hidden behind the scenes, is that that's not actually 2.24. It's this. Quote, or double quote, 2.24, double quote. It just simply means I'm taking on the characters 2.24. That may sound confusing, but the difference is these can be added and the others can't. Let me show you what I mean. I'm going to go back in here to double, and I'm going to go to calculate field. Or rather, I'll wait for that for another video. I want to show that one in a little bit because we're running a little bit sort of ahead on this. So for this, or behind on this. So for this video, let's just leave it here, right? Integer, double, text. Leave yourself seeing how even though these two look alike, there's a key difference. Double, the actual number, is oriented to the right. The one that only looks like a number is oriented to the left.